So everyone, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you all here. People are saying they're having trouble getting into the Zoom. This is all the great joys of being online. I'm not sure. Oh, here we are. Okay, so welcome everyone. It is really an honor to be here tonight, to have you all here tonight. For those of you who are joining us from all over the world, and those of you who are joining us live here on Zoom, or you are joining us on one of the other platforms, if you want, you can please use the chat boxes. Let us know where you're coming in from. Let us know where you're joining you from. And also, if you have any questions for Fishel throughout, we're going to give priority to the questions that come in from the chat box itself to allow for those people who have their questions first. But I don't want to take up too much space because tonight is a very special night. It's an absolute honor to have the distinguished, the great Fishel Goldig. He's not just a Holocaust survivor. He's not your ordinary Holocaust survivor, if there's such a thing as an ordinary Holocaust survivor. Fishel is a wonderful chazan. He has a lot of great talents that we can give him, the accolades that we can give him here tonight. But most importantly, beyond being an amazing person and a great voice to the Shoah, to the Holocaust, and to the victims of the Holocaust, and to the survivors of the Holocaust, he also is just a real mensch, a real good man. And so I'm not going to go through your whole bio, Fishel, because I don't want to give you a whole eulogy in the middle while I'm looking at your face here on Zoom. But what I can tell you is I've known Fishel quite a number of years, and I've enjoyed so many incredible conversations with him. And tonight, I'm going to leave the entire program to Fishel to be able to inspire us and to uplift us. And without any further introduction, ladies and gentlemen, the great, the one and only Fishel Goldig.
I'm not sure I can answer to that kind of introduction, but allow me to try. So my name is Fishel Philip Goldig, and I am a survivor of the Holocaust. As a representative of the Montreal Holocaust Museum, I was asked to speak to you about my story of survival during World War II. So I want to start by telling you a little story about a 6-year-old boy who was coming home from school one day. He was attacked, beaten up, and called all kinds of terrible names, including Dirty Jew. They left him on the ground and ran away. And when he finally reached home crying and told his mother what has happened and asked her, why? I have not done anything wrong. My son answered his mother, you better get used to it. We, the Jewish people, have been persecuted for many centuries. This is called anti-Semitism. It is comprised of ignorance, prejudice, and hate. And hate brings us a war. And then the war brings us a Holocaust. And as you well know, in the Holocaust, we lost 6 million Jewish people, including 1.5 million children. 1.5 million children. It is beyond understanding. It cannot even be, we don't understand even what it means. when one child is so precious. And here we're talking about 1.5 million children. Now, I was a child at that time. When the war started, I was 6 years old. Perhaps I was saved, but I was saved. And perhaps I was saved so that I could come before you and many, many other groups, young and old, to tell my story of survival. So I was 6-year-old at the time, and I think you've imagined by now that you know who that little boy in the story was. Of course, that was me. So you can see that I learned about anti-Semitism at a very young age. So let me tell you about myself a little bit. I was born in Polish Ukraine in 1933 in the town of Mielnica. Before the war, Western Ukraine was a province of Poland. The majority of the population was Ukrainian. My story begins in 1939. In that year, there was a pact between Germany and Russia. Both countries agreed to invade Poland. Russia conquered Polish Ukraine in the east, and Germany conquered the rest of Poland. Now, when the Russians came into our town, they started to arrest most of the rich people. Can you go to the next picture, please? No, thank you. That's good. That is in 1939. I was 6 years old, and I'm here in front of our house with my parents. So when the Russians came into our town, they started to arrest most of the rich people. Some were sent to Siberia, the very rich, and others were expelled from the town and forced to live in another town in the region. One day, when I was 6 years old, I remember that it was on a Sunday afternoon when my parents and I were having lunch. The secret police, known as the KGB, and 2 other policemen carrying rifles entered our home. They told us that we were considered to be part of the rich bourgeoisie class, the bourgeoisie class, and that we had 3 days to abandon our house and leave the city, live in another city in the area. We left our town and settled in a town approximately 30 kilometers away. But we were not wealthy. My father had a small business. He was furious, and he wanted to know why. He wasn't rich. He had a small business just to make a living for his family. That's it. And so he decided to send a letter to Stalin, Premier Stalin of Russia, complaining that a mistake was made in our case and that we should be granted permission to return to our town of birth. Well, 1.5 years later, 2 secret police came to the door asking my father to accompany them to the police station. I remember my mother and I crying when he left because we were sure we would never see him again. And that was the situation at that time. At the police station, he was interrogated, and he was asked if he had written a letter to Stalin. My father admitted that he had written the letter. He couldn't refuse it because his signature was on the letter. He was then told that our case had been reviewed and that we had permission to return to our city. So we returned, but several months later, the Germans conquered the whole region and entered our town. At first, they declared some of the things we must do, some of the things we cannot do, and so on. For instance, we all had to wear an armband. Ours was a yellow star of David. Obey curfew. No traveling, no associations in groups. They took away all our passports and birth certificates, so you couldn't travel anyways, and so on. Not long after, so a few months after, the Germans proclaimed that all Jews in our town and in the surrounding towns and villages had to abandon their homes and travel to a ghetto in the city of Borszczow, approximately 60 to 70 kilometers away, taking with us only what we could carry. Rabbi, could you, the next one, please? Thank you. So that is an approximate, this is not exactly the ghetto we were in, but it's very, very close. I couldn't find a picture of actually us, but this was very, very close. Buildings like that and little homes and stores and so on. The ghetto was part of the town of Borszczow, consisted of approximately 10 square blocks in the Jewish sector, surrounded by barbed wire. Life in the ghetto was inhumane. There was typhus, dysentery, lice, and rats. People, 4 or 5 families lived in one apartment or flat. My parents and I lived in one room. We received some rations, but they were very minimal. And so we were always hungry. I must tell you that a lot of people actually died from the dysentery and basically also from different diseases that were running around in the ghetto, and also from hunger. Hunger was the prime complaint. The Germans would choose a day, usually on a Jewish holiday, that they would call Aktiontag in German, which meant Action Day. On such a day, they would surround the ghetto with Gestapo, German SS troops, as well as the Ukrainian Nazi police. Everyone caught during that day was brought to the cemetery, where other Jews had dug this huge grave, immense grave. There, everyone was shot and buried in this grave. So their way of doing it is they would bring a lot of people and just stand them up, 20, 25 at a time, or 35 or 40, and they would just shoot everybody and then throw them into that grave. they were doing this. They were everybody that was on the street or in their homes or apartments. They took everybody. So everyone caught during that day was brought to the cemetery, and there they got shot. Anyone that refused to go to the cemetery or who tried to escape was shot on the spot. Now, during one of these action days, or massacre days, if you like, I believe it was on the Passover, on the Pesach. I lost my grandparents, 2 aunts, 2 uncles, and 3 cousins. Now, in order to survive, most people had to find a hiding place. And people would find all kinds of hiding places in the cellar, in the attic. Some of them would make a double wall. In other words, one wall that was standing, another one was constructed 30 centimeters or so, or more, 40 centimeters away. And there they had a space in between, and that's where people were hiding. They did the same thing to the ceiling. Okay, they did the same thing to the ceiling. They made a false ceiling, made some room over there, and that's where they stayed. Basically, if you did not hide, you'd be dead. Now, so everybody had to find a place to hide. In our building, in our apartment building, there was an engineer who he designed something very special, a special hiding place for the people who lived in our building. You see, there was an outhouse, a toilet in the back of our apartment building. As you entered, you opened the door, there was a small wooden platform. This platform was lifted, a bunker for all the people that lived there. So they dug deep, and then made it wider and longer and higher and so on. And every time we heard shooting, we knew that this was going to be a killing day. And so everyone would run to the bunker and stay there until nightfall, when the shooting finally stopped. You see, this was a one-day deal. They would come in the morning, very early in the morning, perhaps 7 o'clock or something, and leave in the evening also 7, 8 o'clock. And after they left, everybody would come out, whoever was still alive, everybody would come out, and life in the ghetto would continue. I remember once after an action day, when we came out of the bunker, I saw some of my friends who were shot lying on the street. These were children that I was playing with, my age. I was 8 and 9 years old when I was in the ghetto. They were shot on the street. They were being picked up from the street and thrown onto a horse and buggy and taken to the cemetery. We stayed in the ghetto for 1 year and 3 months until the Germans decided to liquidate the ghetto. In other words, They were going to kill everyone in the ghetto day after day after day until all the Jews were dead in the ghetto. Finally, it came. We heard the shooting and people began running every which way in order to save themselves. We heard that in one sector of the ghetto, some people were able to cut the wire and escape through the non-Jewish area of the city, then run into the fields and eventually into the forest. So the goal was to escape from the ghetto and run to it was quite a few kilometers away. There were fields in between, and go and hide in the forest. So my parents, myself, my cousin, and his parents decided to try to escape through this opening in the barbed wire. However, when we arrived there were many people pushing to get out because there were thousands of people. And so everybody was pushing. The Germans who discovered this opening in the barbed wire came with 2 trucks that had mounted machine guns on top of the truck, one on each side of the street. And as Jewish people tried to run across the street, they were gunned down with those machine guns. And so the street was full of dead people. Now, my father and uncle managed to cross the street and continued running towards the forest. Because what happened was that when everybody pushed like that, my father and my uncle, we got separated. He was up front, a little bit more up front, and he was able to run through and eventually go to the forest, hide in the forest. My mother and I, my aunt and my cousin, who was a year younger than me, decided to return to the ghetto because to try to cross the street was a certain death. The machine guns were going all the time. So we started to look for a place to hide. I'm sorry, I didn't, I forgot to tell you. If you, Rabbi, next picture, please. Oops, you got it, thank you. We started to look for a place to hide, as I said. So in back of one of the buildings, we found an old abandoned shed without doors. This is the shed, and if you look down, that was the 2 doors that were there, and as you can see, it was divided by a kind of a door, as I will explain in a minute. So this shed was divided, as you see, in 2 sectors, on the right side and on the left side. And so we went into that shed. My aunt and my cousin went to the right section of the shed, and my mother and I went into the left section of the shed. Now, my aunt found 2 very large wash basins. Now you can see those wash basins. In those days, people did laundry in those wash basins. And so she took the right side. And she and they covered themselves with, they turned over the basin and they covered it over their heads like that. And they just lied there, sat there, lied there underneath. My cousin was up at the bottom or up front, and my aunt was in the back. On our side, we went to the left side. We found two large straw mattresses. As you can see, the two mattresses on the left side. And my mother covered me with one of the mattresses and herself with the other. I was lying diagonally under the mattresses that was closer to the closest to the entrance. Okay? You wanted the next one, please? Here you can see me. My mother was up there. She was under the mattress, and I was under this mattress up front, okay, on the bottom. And I was lying diagonally. My head was in that corner, and my feet was in the other corner. So we were lying there very, very quietly, all four of us. But then we heard two Ukrainian Nazi police approaching the shed. One policeman stayed outside. The other entered the side where my aunt and cousin were hidden, on the right side. He lifted the first basin with his rifle. My cousin Yulik was hidden underneath that one, and the policeman shot him on the spot. Then the policeman went to the other base, to the other basement where my aunt Rivka was hiding. Can you just go back for a minute so they can see the basins? Yes. So first he went here, killed my cousin, who was 8 years old, and then he went to the other one on the top, as you see it over there, and he found my Aunt Rivka, and he shot her on the spot. So then the other one, then they entered our side of the shed. Now you can go back, please. One, yeah. No, one further. All right, stay here for me. Okay, that's good too. So they entered our side of the shed, and one policeman lifted the corner. He lifted the corner where I was lying, where I was lying, that corner. Bring it back one, please. Okay, so this is the corner that he lifted, and the bottom, as you can see it. Yes, that corner. He lifted that corner, and I was lying in that on diagonal, and I was only 9 years old, so he didn't see me. He didn't see anything, and so he turned to the other guy that was staying outside, and he said, let's get the heck out of here. There's nobody else here. My dear friends, that was about as close as I came to dying that day. And so I just want to bring to your attention again something that I forgot. And if you go back to the, yes, you see this wall here. It wasn't the wall. It was planks of the wood, and each one separated by about 3-4 inches was another plank going from floor to ceiling. Okay, and so there were in other words, we could hear everything that was going on the other side before they came to our side. So I just wanted to tell you that we waited several hours until nightfall without moving. We were listening to the moaning and the moans of my aunt and cousin dying on the other side of the shed, until there was silence. That was my mother's sister and my cousin. Finally, when it was dark, we ran through the opening of the barbed wire fence, across the non-Jewish sector and into the fields. We were trying to reach the forest, but since we did not know the way, we wandered around in the fields for about 10 days. We were totally lost. And we were hiding in the high corn and the wheat that was growing there. One day, we were discovered by a group of about 10 to 12 local Ukrainian teenagers. I would say 15, 16, maybe 17 years old. They circled around, you see, they realized that we must be the people that escaped from the ghetto, that we were Jews. So they circled around us and started to throw stones at us. I was bleeding, and my mother she was begging them to stop, but nothing helped. The farmer, what happened next was the farmer who owned that piece of land and lived about half a kilometer away, saw from his house that there was something going on in his place. Something going on. He arrived on horseback and chased away the youngsters, telling them, "You have no business here. This is my land, and you're spoiling my corn and my wheat and everything there. You can get the heck out of there." So he chased them away. Then he took us to his house, bandaged our wounds, gave us some food and something to drink, and helped us to get to the forest. Now, my friends, for me, this man was not a farmer. He was an angel from heaven. Because I do believe that had they continued throwing stones, they would have killed us. We spent finally we arrived in the forest. We spent almost 3 months in the forest and reunited with my father, which was good. At least we were a family again. Life in the forest was very difficult. There was little to eat. We had a lot of rain, and from time to time, there were German patrols looking for Jews who had escaped from the ghetto. They knew that people were in the forest. So we were on the move every few days. Some of the men in our group would go out at night into the fields and steal some corn and potatoes, but this too was very dangerous. After some time, we started looking for a place to hide because winter was coming and we didn't think we were going to survive a winter in this forest. We finally found a courageous potato farmer who agreed to take us in and hide us. Now, along with my parents and myself came my uncle Leon, Aunt Mina, and my 3-year-old cousin Eva. The next step, please. Now, the farmer who took us in, whose name was Kravchuk, he had a house with an attic. And I'll show it to you in a minute if we may. Yeah, the next one. Okay. Of course, this is a drawing. So there was a house, a yard right in the front of the house. And if you see a little further, you'll see that little hill, and I'll talk about this in a minute. So first we stayed, when we came there, we stayed in the attic, right on the left-hand side of the house attic. And we were behind some bales of hay, and we were hiding in that corner. So we stayed there for a while, but this became very dangerous as the farmers' children sometimes would be playing there and even sometimes invited their neighboring friends up to the attic, because it was big. So this became too dangerous and we had to find another place to hide. Now, as I said before, on the farm, there was a yard and that extended to that little hill you see on the right-hand side, little hill. Many years before we came there, the farmer had dug into that hill and made a cave with stone walls and a rounded stone ceiling in order to store potatoes over the winter for his own family, and also he was selling it to his neighbors. Next picture, please. Okay, so here you see that door that you saw before. The door is here, and here the potatoes. Now, if you see, there were small stones over here, bigger ones on the base, you see? And this is where he kept his potatoes. So, when we arrived there, what we did is we removed several large stones at the base of the wall and dug another cave for our two families. The next one, please. So you see what we did. We took out a few stones here in this area, right on the corner, on the base, okay? And we, where the arrow, you see where the arrow is? Pointing there. There, correct. And there we made a small entrance. So the entrance to this cave was small, just enough to slide through it. You just had to sort of crawl in. Then we made it wider, longer, to accommodate my parents and me, my aunt and my uncle, and my 3-year-old cousin. So you see, what we did here is we made a small opening, took out a few stones, okay, and made a small opening. Then we made this whole another cave, a smaller cave for the six of us, my parents and my cousin, and my parents and I, my cousin and her parents. Okay. When I say we dug this, it was my uncle, my father, the farmer, and I helped out a little bit as well. So when we were inside of our cave, we replaced the stones. We pulled them in and put them in the same place where we took them from, so that it would not be detected by anyone coming into the potato, the other cave, the potato cave. The farmer brought us water and food once a day, and also removed the waste. Now, in the first year that we were in, we were able to come out once a week for about half an hour for fresh air and to walk around the yard, but only in the middle of the night, only at night. In the second year, it became very dangerous for us to come out at all. Because if the Germans would have found us, they would have shot us along with the farmer and all of his family. And I must tell you that this is exactly what happened at the other end of the village, where they found Jews hiding on a farm. They then came, shot the Jews, the whole Jewish family, and then killed the whole family of the farmer, his wife, and his kids. So the farmer was afraid, and so we couldn't come out at all. We stayed there in that place till the spring of 1944, when the Russian army liberated us. After our liberation, we went back to our town and to our house, which had been abandoned. And slowly, we returned to a normal life. Very semi-normal, let's put it this way. My father went out to talk to some of the neighbors, Ukrainian neighbors that he knew, and got everybody sort of donated a little bit of furniture to us, and a table and chairs and so on. And we started to live a little bit of a normal life. So from 1944 to 1945, we lived there in the city, in our town where I was born, Mielnica. And I had to go to school, and my schooling was all in Russian. From 1944 to 1946, we lived in a big city called Katowice in Poland. It's a city that is not very far from Krakow. And all my schooling was in Polish. Now, I must stop here for a moment to tell you something that happened while we were at Katowice. You see, my father was doing everybody was doing some kind of, you had to eat. So he was doing some black market stuff, buying there and selling there because there was nothing really going on right after the war. We're talking 45, 46. There was nothing going on. So he was doing a little black market, and people knew that he was buying here and selling there and making a few dollars. One day, a truck with a soldier with a truck came to our door, knocked on the door, and asked for my father. My father had said yes. He says that you buying all kinds of things. I have some very nice material in my truck. Okay. And so my father went with him, said, let me see. He opened up the back of the truck, and there was a whole trailer load, a whole truckload of talesa. Okay, a whole truckload. And so my father bought it from him, got a few guys together, and they bought it together. They bought it. He distributed to a lot of people. He gave a lot to there were 2 shuls by then. I gave it to the shuls and they distributed it. And but when my father asked the soldier, where did you get these talesa? Where did you get this stuff? He says, I took it from one of the concentration camps. So that's why I had to stop and just tell you this little story that we went through. Okay, so we were there until in Poland, just till 1946. In 1946, we traveled to Czechoslovakia, where we found some smugglers who took us across the border into the American zone in Germany. Now, if you remember your history, after the war, Germany was divided in 4 sectors. There was the American, the French, the English, and the Russian. Okay, we wanted to go to the American side because we could not, even from Poland or from the Ukraine, contact an uncle that we had here in Canada and some other family that we had in the United States. So mainly in New York. And so we went to find these smugglers, and they took us across the border into the American zone. We had to walk. There was a truck that took us from Prague till the border, and then we had to go by foot about, I don't know, 100 meters or so. And then there was another truck waiting for us, and that truck took us to a displaced persons camp, a refugee camp, if you like, called Pocking, which is in Bavaria. And there we stayed from 1946 to 1948. There I learned to speak Hebrew and German, of course. I want to tell you one other thing. No matter where we traveled and no matter where we were, my father insisted that I have to go to a cheder. So no matter what school I attend to during the day, in the afternoon or whatever, I had to go to cheder. Now, I want to speak now a little bit of our life here in Canada. My life began when we reached Montreal in 1945 and 48. Everything before that was bad dreams and awful memories. My wife, who was sitting over here, actually tells me that from time to time I either moan or speak something from happening earlier years when I was a young boy. So everything before that, as I said, was just terrible memories. We were very happy to be in Canada. Still, for the first few years, life was quite difficult. We were Holocaust survivors and immigrants to a new country and couldn't speak English or French. We rented a third floor of a triplex. In those days, it was difficult to find a flat without paying key money of approximately $500. We had arrived with only 15 US dollars. That was the gross pack that we had. So my father had to borrow money from the Hebrew Free Loan Association. His weekly salary working at a rubber factory was $15. My mother worked as a dress finisher at a sweatshop for around $16 a week. She worked evenings and weekends, and they both of them worked very, very hard. It's worth mentioning that we were very thankful for being allowed to come to Canada and to be able to start a new life in a free, democratic country. But there was a dark side as well. The governments, you see, both provincial and federal, were somewhat anti-Semitic. Since we were used to so much more anti-Semitism, there was little concern for us at that time. Our relationship with the existing Jewish community was much of greater concern. The Montreal Jewish community had no interest in knowing the survival stories of the thousands of Jewish immigrants who had arrived in Canada after the war. The Jewish community did not want to have any relationship with survivors. In fact, it was just different. It was difficult for us to immigrate into the local Jewish society, integrate into the Jewish society. We were subjected to being called greeners and mockies and other insulting names. So now this was very hurtful, considering that we had gone through the horrible experience of Nazi oppression and anti-Semitism. For example, I had attended a yeshiva. I went to the yeshiva, Merkaz Torah. I attended that yeshiva for 4 years. Of course, there were only Jewish students there. Yet, in the 4 years that I studied there, no one ever asked me how I had survived the Holocaust. 4 years. Our soccer team was part of the Jewish Community Center, the YMHA. But other Y members would have nothing to do with us. It is interesting that the treatment of the relationship of the survivors who immigrated to other countries had the similar problems that we have. And unfortunately, it was very difficult and very sad that even in Israel, the survivors who finally reached the promised land, and some who were almost immediately joined the army, were also not treated well. Nevertheless, we overcame all of this, we survived, we prospered, and integrated with all societies wherever we live. Now, I would like to, Rabbi, let's do the one by one of some of the pictures, and I'll talk about them, okay? Whoops. Okay, in our city, in Mielnica, there were about close to 3,000 Jews. And survivors from the 3,000 Jews was about 160 or 70 that survived. But there were only three boys and a little girl. That was my cousin. So the three boys are here. And one of them is myself at the age 11, taken right immediately after the war in 1944. Our war ended in 1944 because we were far east. So one of them, can someone tell me which one is me? Anybody?
Top one.
The one on the top?
Yep. Handsome man.
No,
Yes.
it's not me.
No.
The one
My-
with
My
I
son
was-
says that you're the one with the white shirt.
you know what? You're wrong.
No.
You're wrong.
You're wrong.
Over there with the cap.
So it's the only one that's believe that's me on the left. Okay, next picture. All right, this is in the camp, in the the DP camp, the displaced persons camp. We were there for 2 years, and everything was doing well. That's my father and myself when I was bar mitzvah, and that in back of it was, you see, we were all living in at one point there was almost 10,000 people that lived in there. People from all over Europe came to that camp. So we all lived in what did I say? In these barracks, okay? And in back of me, you can see one of the barracks was made into a shul. You know, they took all the walls and so on and made a shul out of it. And so that's where I spent my bar mitzvah. For my bar mitzvah, I had a big party, which consisted, not like here for sure, but it consisted of 2 cakes, you know, that my mother made, a white cake and a honey cake. And my father brought 2 bottles of schnapps, and that was my bar mitzvah. On the left, you see some of the boys that were in my class, they were on my soccer team. Okay, these are some of the boys. Next picture. Next one. Okay, this picture is when I first came to Canada in 1948, and these are my parents. Next picture. Okay, this is my whole gang today. These are my children and my grandchildren. And what I always say is Hitler lost and I won. We won. So this is my whole family, children and grandchildren. So I have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. Now, I want to talk to you now because, yes, because this is the today is the Yom Hashoah. And I wanted to just take a minute or two from you to talk about Yom Hashoah. We commemorate this day all over the world. But why do we commemorate this Shoah? The reason is basically that this Shoah, this Holocaust, was the worst tragedy that it was the worst tragedy, one of the worst tragedies of the world, and definitely for Jews, it was the greatest tragedy of all time. The greatest tragedy of all time. So why we do that is why we commemorate this day is because it should be very important to us. And this is why I work for the museum, the Holocaust Museum here in Montreal. I'm a representative that goes around talking to hundreds and hundreds of students and maybe in the thousands by now, since I started 5-6 years ago. And I tell them my story so that they can remember not only the story that I tell them, but we also have to think about the current situation where we are today. My dear friends, this Holocaust can happen again. Don't blow it away easy. It can happen again. And all you need to know and all you need to see is what happening to our neighbor in the south on January the 6th, 2021, where people were walking around with the shirts with the big sign that said Auschwitz was not enough. And they were there by the hundreds. And how much more do you need? You must remember that Hitler didn't start killing people immediately. He also started like that. His people were going around burning synagogues, breaking windows, breaking doors, beating up people, cutting off the beards from people. That's how they started. These guys that you saw here in January, I was frightened, to tell you the truth. These people that you saw there were fascists. Fascists, Hitler's voice. And that's why we have to remember that on this day of Yom Hashoah. This is very, very important. And just now, since we're talking about Yom Hashoah and how many people died in it, it is only appropriate that, and I would like to do that. I would like to do the Elul Rachamim for the 6 million Jews that perished at the time of the Nazis. El male rachamim shochen b'mhamim amtzei menucha min hanechana alekanevei ashchina במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר רקיע מזהירים את נשמות רבבות אלפי ישראל אנשים ונשים, ילדים וילדות, כולם קדושים, קדושים וטהורים, שנהרגו ושנשרטו, ושנשחטו, ושנשרפו, ושנחנקו, ונגברו, קידו בני חיים, על קידוש השם. על ידי הצוררים הנאצים, יימח שמם וזכרם. בעבור שאנו מתפללים ביד הזכרת נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם לוקחים בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנגוב לעולמים ויהי צרור בצרור החיים את משמותיהם אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם ונאמר אמן. Just before we're going to go into questions, I just want to tell you something, and I want to address in particular the younger people in the audience. We talked about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism and where it is now. We all know that it is horrible. It's become very, very, very bad. And I hope it doesn't get much worse. Already we had killings in Pittsburgh and in other places. And we don't want that to continue. So what do we have to do as survivors, as Jews the world over? We and you together, particularly the younger people, you must make sure that there will never be another Holocaust. You can't allow this to happen. Secondly, there is also those that you find, especially those in universities or even outside of universities, you'll find deniers that will come to you and tell you that this Holocaust never happened. Never happened. End of story. Never happened. You must not let him get away with it. You must explain to him. You must talk to him. You must convince him that what he's telling everybody else is a lie. It's a lie. You have to tell the truth. You have to face this guy and tell him that he's telling lies. And anybody that listens to him has to understand that this is a lie. And you have to tell him that you met someone who was actually there. That is your work, we say, what you can do about the Shoah. And not only those kind of guys, the racists, the anti-Semites, the haters, the ignoramuses. You must confront them, oppose them, and explain to them that we must live together. We must live together. Otherwise, we will all perish. We must tell the world who tell that the Jews are all together always, but that they don't care about anybody else. In the Torah we read that you must love your neighbor. But it doesn't say what neighbor. It doesn't say it has to be a Jew or a Christian or an Arab, a Muslim. We must live together. Sure, we want to be Jews and behave like Jews, but we're not standing in anybody's way if they want to behave in a different religion or a different philosophy or different ways of life. So this is the message I leave with you. We have to become active. We must do what we can that we don't see in Canada, what we just saw last January and 6th in the United States. It's a kind of a disease that travels like the COVID. And that's not only here, in Europe. I don't have to tell you. You read the papers and you see it on television, what's happening there. So let's be very vigilant. Let's be very vigilant. Let's not even let it to allow it to start, because it can become horrible. All right. Now we can go to questions. Anybody have a question? I'll be very happy to answer all your questions.
Thank you so much, Fishel.
We're going to be here for overnight, so you can ask many questions.
Fishel, thank you for your beautiful words. That was unbelievably moving and inspiring. For anyone that has any questions, you're welcome to either use the chat box, or if you're here with us, you can unmute yourself. There's no special order. I'm sure many of you have questions. If you want to stay anonymous with your questions, you're welcome to send me a private message and I will read the question for you. So please, in no special order, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Rabbi, those that are on the Zoom, they want to question themselves. Will you allow it?
Of course, with pleasure.
Okay, so that I can see these people and say hi.
I want you to know that I am so honored to be in your presence. It breaks my heart to listen to your story, but it makes my heart feel good that you care this much. I mean, anti-Semitism is rampant, and Pittsburgh saw it. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart. My father he'd be rolling in his grave. He's the one who helped liberate Buchenwald. And I could never figure out why he had such a hatred for Germany. And then I found out when I saw his pictures. It broke my heart.
Francis, I can't hear you. Oh, no, it's not that. Nancy. Nancy, I can't hear you. I'd like to see your face. So
How do I do that?
you have to unmute yourself.
I did.
Put yourself on video.
All right. Okay. There I am.
There you
Hi,
are.
here you are.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to see you.
It's an honor to see you.
Yes.
And I tell you, your story touched my heart so.
Thank you.
But I now know why my father had such a hatred. He was in World War II, and his brigade was part of the brigade that liberated Buchenwald. And I never, ever could figure out why he had such a hatred of Germans.
So let me.
I found pictures.
Okay, let me just tell you, I am confronted with this question of how I feel about the Germans. And when I talk to students, and I do talk by the hundreds and thousands even now, of students from grade 6 to university. And when I always been asked that question about how do I feel towards the Germans? And I tell them the following. You see, of course, I have a hatred for those that killed 6 million Jews and a lot of my family. But there's always a but. You see, I carry some things that I don't do. I have never gone back to where I was born in the Ukraine, and I never went back to Germany, although we lived there for 2 years.
Right.
But not everybody. A lot of survivors have gone back to where they were born, and to see and to this and that. But the question I'm asked about me, and how I feel about it, I say to them as follows. There is now a third generation of Germans. We cannot go around forever and hate. You must be very smart about it and make sure who you're speaking to and what kind of person you speak to. But eventually, probably not in my time, but in my grandchildren's time, they will have to live together if they want to live in this world. Or they'll die together in this. If they don't live together in liberty and in freedom, they will die in this world.
But it will happen again.
Okay? So
It will happen again.
okay, so
I can't help it.
that's why we're going to, you particularly, and all the other ones who was gathered here are all going to help us defeat these guys, because these are Nazis. It's not just the Germans. Nazis can be anywhere. You find them in France, you find them in Italy,
You find them in the United States.
but we are going to survive, and we will going to conquer this hate. We must.
From your mouth to God's ears. That's how I feel.
Okay.
And God love you.
Next, Rabbi.
Oy. God love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy, what did you do with your father's pictures from Buchenwald?
I have them on my computer. I sent them to my grandchildren. I sent them to my niece and my nephews and my sister. And my niece was like flabbergasted. She could not believe it. I mean, I have a picture of the where they put them in and burned them. I have pictures of that. I have pictures of German words. I have a picture of my dad in the camp. And I'm telling you right now, what's going on today, my father would be rolling in his grave.
Nancy, if you can I would love to see some of the pictures if you would send them to me.
I can. Can you send me an email address? I will send them to you.
Sure. Wow, unbelievable.
Breaks my heart.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I
thank-
lost. Are you ready? I lost 4 people in that synagogue shooting.
We have a lot of people that are waiting.
And it broke my heart.
Nancy, we're gonna go to some of the other questions, but thank you very much for being here with us. I so appreciate it.
Send me your email, and you know what? God bless all of you, and I have to say goodnight.
Thank you.
I have watched too much Holocaust tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. God love all of you.
Any other questions? I have one question that came in. Do you speak to students? If so, what message do you tell the students?
Who's that asked that question?
That was from Rob.
Ross?
Rob.
Oh, Ralph. Sorry. Ralph, how old are you? I guess he can't.
I don't know. He just wrote it. He wrote the question.
All right. I'm assuming that you're a young man.
Oh, I'm 53.
I'm sorry?
I'm 53.
Okay. You're still a young man.
Yeah.
You know, I keep saying to everybody that everybody is younger than me. So you're a young man. We have to be more active. People in your age particularly can be in a leadership role for teenagers by, for instance, not necessarily that particularly you have to find your own thing that you want to do, but you can work, you can go on yeah. No, on the trip. March of the Living. You can go to March of the Living and you'll really observe. You could be go as a chaperone to the kids, which I did. And up to that point, I didn't tell my story. But this, when I saw the actual things that we saw in Poland, the all different camps that we visited and saw what was going on, I had to come back and tell my story. So you can get involved actively in such a story, in such a thing. Also, you can perhaps work as a second. Your parents are survivors? No? Okay, they're looking for people on different committees at the museum, the Holocaust Museum. So you can find something to do there. Also, you can offer your services to B'nai Brit. We're doing I must tell you, they're doing great work about finding anti-Semitism, wherever it is. B'nai Brit is really good at that. They're finding all kinds of things. Other organizations that I can't think at the moment, but that you can get involved and make a difference. And particularly in be able to lead or teach the young kids, the younger generation, second generation, third generation, whatever. Another question, please. Rabbi?
Ariel has her hand raised. Please unmute yourself.
Ariel. Where are you?
Hello.
Hi,
Thank you
Hi.
very much for telling us your story.
we are very honored to be and to listen to you. And I have a question. I'm from France, Europe, and as you said before, the rise of anti-Semitism, of terror is true. That's one of the reasons I moved to Canada also. And I was wondering if you have an advice. I've already met some negationists. How do you say this in English? Okay, en français, des négationnistes, or some people that, as you said, don't believe in the Shoah and are just hateful, and it's very hard to have a conversation and to be able to convince them about this way. So how do you have maybe a story or an experience, or how do you convince those people about all of this?
Tell them that you, and is that your wife or girlfriend?
Fiance.
I'm sorry?
Fiance.
Fiance. Oh, fiance. That's even better. So you can basically tell these people that you met a man who was actually there. And you can tell them part of that story of mine, what happened to me. And tell them something else. That man would, this man, me, I would like to meet him. I would like to be invited to your house and invite this other guy, and we're going to have a nice conversation. I can tell you that. Okay?
After COVID.
And of course, the rabbi will come too, because he has to bring the schnapps. Okay, Anybody else?
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Nobody have written in?
Anybody that, you don't have to raise your hand. You can just unmute yourself.
Hi, Fishel. I was just wondering, it's Brian from Windsor, Ontario. Did most Jews have to change their names in order to survive? Like, I know my grandfather mentioned he changed his name from Horowitz to Howard, but I don't know the circumstances because he passed away a few years ago, but I think he was serving overseas, like with the British Army.
Brian, yeah, everybody tried that. We, before the war started, a lot of people in the Ukraine and Poland were changing their names to a Polish name or something. So maybe they won't be, maybe nobody's going to hate it. Here is the emes. Here is the truth. You don't get away with that. Let me tell you why not. You will always be known as a Jew. Somehow, somebody is going to find out that you're a Jew, and he's going to broadcast this to all the other friends and people that he knows, and you're going to be a Jew, whether you're called Brian or Brianovsky or Herr Howard or something like that. Doesn't help. They're not going to. I always tell a lot of the people that Hitler didn't care what your name was and when you changed it or changed it back. He took everybody that was Jewish. He didn't care whether you were from the right party, from the left party. He didn't care whether you were a religious person, one with a beard and payas. I always tell the story that,
Or secular.
yeah. So you could be secular. He didn't care who it was. If your grandparents or your great-grandparents were Jewish, and you even didn't know that you were Jewish, he took you in too. He didn't care whether you were religious or not religious. I always tell the story, the rabbi knows, that the secular person, the one that had never been to shul and never knew anything about the Judaism, that guy and the other person with the beard and payas went hand to hand into the gas chambers. So nobody cared. So we learned our lesson. We don't have to change our names. They'll find out who's a Jew. If he's looking for a Jew in a bad way, he'll find that guy. There's no place to hide. We are what we are. And these guys on January 6th, they didn't ask who was a Jew. They were ready to, if you gave them just a word, they would be killing Jews. Those guys.
Fishel, we have a few questions that are coming in privately.
Okay.
One of them is here. How many survivors are there estimated to be alive right now? Do you know that?
I don't know exactly, but the most of the survivors are in Israel. We were and New York was the second place where a lot of survivors still lived. And the third one was Montreal, believe it or not. So we had a large, I I think there were something like 17,000 survivors here in Montreal that came in.
But you don't know how many are still here.
No, I don't. I would imagine would be probably 4,000 or 5,000
That are still alive.
that are still alive. Maybe
Yeah.
This man, Eric, he's shaking his head. Probably not even that many.
Okay,
I'm
wow.
thinking about those that are in
My
back
mother's one.
now.
My mother is a survivor. She's alive, 91 years old. But there aren't that many left. Probably at best a few hundred, I would think.
Wow.
Oh, there are more than that.
In Montreal.
You mean in Montreal?
In Montreal,
There are more. I know that. And I tell you how I know. If I go to during Yom Hashoah, I attend it every year, which takes place at the Bailey Show, you know, and so there's a commemoration over there. And I see there's, when they ask people that are survivors to stand up, I count quite a number of them. And I know that a lot of them are now. Look, I was 8, 9 years old when I was in the ghetto. And I am now 78,
You're 87.
87. Sorry. It's a good thing my wife is here. She just had to,
Whoops.
she had to tell me. Yeah, so I'm 87. And a lot of them that were older than me coming in are now in their 90s. So they don't get out. A lot of them are in homes and in different or in houses with their families and so on. But there are still quite a few. Anybody else?
The second part of that question, Fishel,
Yeah.
was, do you have family or friends that are survivors that you're still in touch with?
Oh, yes. People that I'm very close with. Sidney Zoltak, if anybody knows
Your
him.
cousin that you were hidden with.
Yeah. First of all, also there's my cousin, that 3-year-old that I told you about, that was hidden in that hole that we were in for 2 years. Well, today that little girl is a world renowned geneticist, and so there are other people, yes, that went through this, and I mentioned some of the people that were with me in the theater for years who are survivors. So there are survivors, quite a number of them.
Fishel, another question came in. Someone wants to know, how did your family escape from being taken to the camps?
We were hiding, remember? We were hiding in the ghetto. We were hiding in the forest. We were hiding in the cave for 2 years. You had to hide.
You were running away and hiding.
There was no other way, Rabbi. No other way. If you wanted to be out, you would be dead in no time. Probably the same day. So everybody that you talk to, first of all, I want to tell you one thing. Every survivor that survived because of one thing. You may call it luck, if you like. If you're religious, you say God had something to do with it, that you're still alive. But the truth is that there had to be some luck. How the luck came is another story, but you had to have luck to survive. Look at what happened to me. The guy came with his rifle, lifted the corner of the mattress, but on the wrong corner. Had he lifted the other corner on the other side, I would be dead, and so would be my mother. And every survivor you meet will tell you that he went through a period where he was lucky to be alive, lucky to go
She
through.
wants to know why you didn't go to a camp. That was-
Oh yeah, why I didn't go? Why I didn't go to a
You're
camp?
like one step ahead of them.
Because they were taking, the Germans were, and from the ghetto, they took people that were able to work, and they took them to Belzec, to one of the concentration camps. Very few people survived that in that camp. So they took them there, but they didn't take kids, young kids like me, and they didn't take older people. They wanted young, strong boys to go to work. At the end, they would, when they couldn't work anymore, they would send them to the crematorium. But that's another, okay. So this never happened to us because we were just a little bit ahead of them by luck, if you want to call it that, or maybe divine
Divine intervention.
intervention happened. And like I start saying at the beginning of my story, I say, just maybe God saved me so that I can come to all of you, into the many groups that I see on almost a daily basis, and to tell them of my story.
And maybe non-Jews.
Huh?
And non-Jews.
And I tell that, by the way, I tell it to very few Jewish groups, but I do some, but mostly non-Jewish people, and mainly French Canadians. And I speak to them about it. Okay, anybody else?
I have a question here that came in. I'm afraid to even ask it to you, but you'll have to, I'm asking it because it came in. But you'll have to, you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. The question is, do you remember the emotions that you had during hiding, or did you just block it out of your mind? Today, I guess that's the question. Today, do you remember the emotions that you had while you were hiding?
To tell you the truth, Rabbi, we didn't really think about yes, we had emotions. Of course, we had emotions. We wanted to have fresh air, and we couldn't have it. We wanted a little better food. I mean, he gave us plenty, but it wasn't the kind of food we wanted. We had no choice. So yes, we had emotions, and we didn't know, for instance, some of my other family, some other aunts and uncles, and that perished, but we weren't sure because they lived in other cities, and we were not able to communicate with them. Only after the war, we found out that they weren't alive.
You suppress your emotions.
Okay, but other than that, the instinct was working in us day in and day out. You wanted to live just one more day, one more day, one more week, maybe. And to stay alive until you'll be liberated. That was the thing that was going on in all of those people that were hiding. Okay, wherever they were, whether they were in forests, fighting in the
I think
partisans.
you subdue your emotions.
Okay.
Survival
You
instincts
must
took over.
subdue your emotions. As I was a kid, I once in a while, when we were outside, just to walk around, I said to my father, you know what? Maybe we'll play some some balls and was going to make a ball out of rags and play a little soccer. We couldn't afford that. Not even for 5 minutes. We were there to get some air because the air where we were near the potato cellar was not that the freshest thing in the world. Okay, so basically there was less emotion and more instinct, fear of not living. Okay.
Fishel, this wonderful farmer Kravchuk, were you able to get him into the Yad Vashem Righteous Among the Nations list?
Yes, we did. I don't know if we have that much time, Rabbi. If you want me to sing a few songs, then we have
Okay.
tonight. Because the other
Okay.
story, I tell you what, after I sing a few songs, if you still want to stick around and then ask me questions, you know, you just have
Because
to.
there's a few more questions that are coming in, some great questions that are coming in privately. So whatever.
Okay, you want to do it now?
I mean, I don't know. You decide what you want to do. You want to sing a
Okay.
song or two?
Keep going. If they go away afterwards, I'll sing just for you, Robert.
Okay, I'll be very happy to get a private concert from Fishel, with pleasure.
Okay, so the first question that you asked me about the people that were hiding us. After the war, when we got liberated, and after we started traveling, finally we came to Canada. All that time, until 1955, we communicated with these people. We sent them parcels and some money and so on all the time. Around 1955, we lost contact with them. Everything was starting to come back, the letters, the parcels, and all of that. What happened was this. We found out later. But let me tell you how we found out. My cousin, the one that was with me on that farm, she was 3 years old at the time. Today she's more than 3 years. And I told you she became a world-renowned what's the word again? Huh? Geneticist. Forget it. I'm an old man, so you have to help me. So geneticist. So she happened to be. She was called to some kind of a conference in a city called Chernobyl. Some people may know where that is. It's still part of Romania or Moldova now. So, and she was doing this. This is not far, 60 miles from 60 kilometers from our city where I was born. So after their conference, she was there with her husband and two daughters. So after the conference was over, they took a little bus, and they traveled to our city. They saw my house, the one that I was born in, and also my grandfather's house. It was a much bigger house. And then they went to find the people that were hiding us. And they went to that little village. And there they found a lady, an old lady who was the sister of the farmer's wife. She was the farmer's wife's sister. So they were asking around, and somebody told them to go to there, and they came in. There was a lady in the late 90s, blind, but of course she had the daughter there and grandkids, grandchildren and so on. And from them, we got the address, the phone number, and even the email of where these people were. What happened to him is around 1955, he had a couple of very bad seasons with the potatoes. And he was very poor. And they had offered him a job in the
Coal mines.
coal
Coal mines.
in the coal mines. In the coal mines. And he took his family and they traveled to, it was in the Ukraine, but Ukraine is a very big country. So that was about 300 kilometers, 400 kilometers away. And that's why everybody, not only us, but some of them during the war, that old lady didn't even know where they were. So anyhow, the story is that was in 2006 or 7. And from there, we rode away to Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, where they, to get them get them into on that program that they have for righteous among the nations. So we rode away, and it took about a year and a half or more, because they're very careful about who they take in. They have to make sure by talking to us and then writing to them and to the Ukrainian family and so on. Anyhow, eventually they said, yes, we're going to accept them and we're going to have a ceremony. Now, the way Yad Vashem works is that you either have it in the country where you are born, or where you were born, meaning actually it's in the capital. You have to go to the capital city, which was Kiev, and there to go to the Israeli council, the Israeli embassy. Okay, go to the Israeli embassy, and there they would make the ceremony and honor these people, or you have to go to Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, and then they make a big party and a big ceremony and so on. Okay. So since they didn't have any money, it had to be in Kiev. So in 2009, I believe it was 8 or 9, I think. We were invited also. That is my wife and I, and my cousin and her husband. We were invited to go to the ceremony in Kiev. And so on a particular day, we flew there, and we went into the band. We stayed in a hotel, of course, and we met the people at the embassy, and they told us that they were honoring 5 families for that ceremony. 5 families. So they sent us, go upstairs and you meet your people. The one that were involved in hiding it. Okay, so we went, we go upstairs and we open up the door, and there's a huge looks like a ballroom, huge. And there were like chairs all along the walls and so on. And there was one here and there and one on this side and on that side. But as we came in from the door, I looked to my left in the corner, and I told Lorna, my wife Lorna, that I think this is my family. Because you see, the farmer and his wife were both dead by then. But the two sisters remained. Two sisters remained. So as we were walking towards the center, I saw them from far, I said to Lorna, this looks like my family. And we started to go towards them. And she recognized me. She was, the older one was the same age as I was.
She was the daughter.
And she was one of the daughters. She was there with her, also with her son and grandkids and so on. So she saw me and she got up and started to walk towards me. And we stood there. I cannot tell you, you talk about emotions, the kind of emotions that we had. We embraced, we kissed, we laughed, we were just so happy to be together. And we talked to one and we talked to the other one, and it was, we were so deliriously happy. That it's something that happens probably once in a lifetime. Okay, when we saw them. We then invited them because they came by train. The embassy pays for them for train travel. So they had a return ticket. So, but we didn't let them go back right away. We took them first into our hotel. We got them rooms, a very, very, very beautiful hotel, downtown Kiev. And we got rooms for them, and then we ate together. We drank it together, and we had just a marvelous time from them. And then during the next day, we hired a small bus. And the grandkids, from them. And we went for a tour of Kiev, which is a beautiful, beautiful city, an old city with many museums and churches and all kinds of things. So they had never seen Kiev. None of them, because they're far away from Kiev as well, probably at least 300 kilometers. And so we spent a very, very, and then the next day, we took them to the train station. And again, the emotions came up by saying goodbye again. So that's the story. That's how we found it. And we've been
Wow.
from time to time.
Wow. Somebody else, there's so many questions, but I'm going to get to two more, and that'll be it for our questions. Somebody
Okay.
asked, did you ever have the occasion? Did you ever have to use violence to survive?
I was a 9-year-old kid, and very few people got violence. Only those, and I'll tell you what happened in Borszczow. At one time, a bunch of guys got together, and they became partisans. They got They dug under if I remember, they dug underneath, under the wire, and they came to the other side. They went to the forest, not our forest, another, and they got guns from some of the nice Ukrainian people. Weren't all nice by any means, but they got that, and from some of the Polish people that lived there also. So they got some rifles, like hunting rifles and so on. But what they were doing is, like partisans, they would they made bombs, homemade bombs. They would put it on the street when when they were traveling by, and they actually did quite a little bit until the Germans got very mad, because the Germans don't like to lose. So, where's the other? So, yes, so they were violent, okay? But eventually they came with some big equipment to the forest, and they killed all of them. Actually had a fire there and killed all of them. So as far as being violent, as a 9-year-old, or 8, 9-year-old, I couldn't be violent. Okay. In fact, there was no such thing. If you wanted to be violent physically, the guy you were attacking had a gun. So it didn't last very long.
Fishel, one last question.
Yes.
This person, I'll just ask it as they ask it. How did so many people keep their faith in God and religion throughout and after the Holocaust?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
The question is, how did so many survivors keep their faith in God and religion throughout and after the Holocaust?
I will talk about my father. Well, first of all, let me say this. There were those that, as you say, continued to believe in God and to religion and to culture and to mitzvot and everything that Judaism stands for. But then there were others that were religious, turned to absolutely zero. Sheldon's father, for instance. One of a relative of mine, he wasn't very religious, but he was an average Jew that went to shul from time to time or whatever. I'm not aware exactly, but he got away from it. I hasten to say that he lost his wife and 2 children when he came, and then he came to Canada. He was in 3 concentration camps, but he was a big guy, strong, and they used him for work all the time, from one camp to the other and so on. And then that's how he survived. He was liberated by the English. Anyways, so, but then there were those that were never religious, never went to a shul, and became very religious. My father did not stop for a moment to believe in God and believe in Judaism and believe in the culture and the Torah and and all the things that makes us for Jews. And he always did. And the thing that he did by making me go to Cheder right after the war started, after the war finished. I think I still believe. So that's a question that I'm always asked, and I think you and I, Rabbi, talked about it. And may I tell that to the audience?
Please.
The rabbi asked me if I still believe in God. I said to him that yes, I believe in God, but I have questions. I have questions till this very day. But I have been raised and I grew up as a Jew. I am not, I don't know if the rabbi considers me a religious Jew, but I am a Jew. And I am a Jew with questions. Okay, next question.
I think that's a great way to end our question and answer session. Fishel, a Jew with questions.
If there's still some people left, I'm sorry. You were saying, Rabbi, I'm sorry.
I just said it's a good way to end it.
Okay,
A Jew with questions.
now, if we still have some people, I would like to sing a couple of ghetto songs.
I think why don't you sing a few songs, and it's getting already late, so I think it'll be good. Let's sing a few songs and then we'll call it a night.
Just two. Okay.
Perfect.
So this is a song. The songs are ghetto songs that were written by people in the ghettos and even performed in some of the big ghettos like Vilna or Vilna ghetto, Lodz ghetto, Warsaw ghetto, all these big ghettos. And they even, while they were in the ghetto, they wrote these songs and performed them even in the theater. They had a theater in Vilna ghetto, for instance, and then others. So let me sing the song for you. The lyrics were from Isaiah Spiegel, and the music by David Wegelman. I think, if I'm not mistaken, both of them did not survive. Macht zu die Egelach, und kommen Fegelach, und kreisen darum, zu koppens von dein Wied, das Beckel in der Hand, das Haus in Asch und Brand. Wir lassen sich, mein Kind, suchen Glück. Now close your little eyes, soon little birds will fly, in circles everywhere, they'll flutter by your bed, your head upon your hand, the house in ash and sand. We leave my darling child in search of life. Die Welt hat Gott vermacht und ist Nacht. Sie wart auf uns mit Scheuder und mit Schreck. Wir stehen beide da in schwerer Schau. und weiß nicht, wohin es führt the way. God has the world withdrawn, the black night fills each dawn. She waits for us with horror and with dread. We both are standing here with terror always near, not knowing, oh, not knowing where or where our road has led. Den hat uns naked blois verjocht von unser Haus, in Finsternis getrieben uns im Feld, in sturem Hagelwind hat uns begleit, mein Kind, begleit uns in dem Abgrund von der Welt. God has and hat uns was stripped naked, we were thrown, erased from our loving home, in the darkest night, into the open field, in sturm Hagelwind, hat uns begleit, mein Kind, begleit uns in dem Abgrund von der Welt. So this is one, and we'll do one more. This is actually a song that has particular meaning for me because the title of the song is Ghetto. That's where I was, all right. This was written by Fishel Goldig in the Vilna Ghetto. He also did not survive. Again, I will sing it in Yiddish first. Just, I'll take a minute so I can rest. I'll take a minute just to tell you that I hope everybody knows that the language of the people in Eastern Europe was Yiddish, with the Yiddish culture, Yiddish poets and writers. And there's a tremendous amount of writings and music and all Yiddish, everything in Yiddish. But since some of you guys don't speak Yiddish, I took I'm taking the liberty to sing it also in Yiddish, as I did before. I mean in English, yeah. All right. Wir stehen bei die Welt, mit Herzen, mit verklemmten, mit der abgelosten Hand, wie bei einem dicker Werbe. Es gucken Augen starr und sinken ein, tief in der Weitkeit, uns bleibt in See der Zar, die Ewigkeit. Schwer zu sehen die Welt, durch enge Mauern, die Steine oben verstellt, die Ghetto teuren, vermachst du nur, dann sehst du aus wie nach Holem. Der Schein wie auf der Wo, die große Welt. Ghetto, ich vergessen will ich käme nicht. Echo, ist dein herziger, dein treuer Lieb. Seh du deine Tränen, dein Unmet, dein Pein, hör du dein Gebet, was wird sein, was wird sein. In deiner Ghetto Geslach ist mir eng, das Herz also übertrieb. Und was versteh steht der auch mir also weh. Ghetto, dich vergessen will ich kein und nie.
Fishel, thank you so much.
Wait, I'm doing it in English.
Oh, in English, sorry.
We're standing by the walls with heartache, lost, defenseless, with hands that hang and fall, just like the weeping willow branches. To the void I stare, peering blindly through the denseness. Only pain is there, the infinite. Hard to view the world through crowded dwellings, tall gates of ghetto walls, all light dispelling. Yet when you close your eyes, then everything appears like dreaming, and you almost surmise the great wide world. Ghetto, in my memory you'll never die. My lament is your heartfelt and your mournful soul. I see all your weeping, your sadness I see. I hear all your pleas, what will be, what will be. Within your ghetto alleys, there's no room. Sadness the heart sustains. Although I know the hurt, the love always remains. Ghetto, in my memory you'll never die. Ghetto, dich vergessen will ich kein Mal nie.
Yeah.
I want to thank all of you who's still here. And
He has a lot of energy for an old guy.
It's unbelievable. You know, you're going on for well over 2 hours, almost 2.5 hours. I can't believe it.
Rabbi,
I can't believe it either.
I spent
Okay.
45 years in the theater. I spent 40 years as a cantor. And you know what you have to go through when you're at Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, okay? It always seemed to me that every year that I grew older, the rabbis added another paragraph to the program, you know. So I was very used to it. Of course, today I cannot possibly do the things I did 40, 50 years ago.
Okay.
But I thank you very much for being here, listening to my songs, listening to my story. I hope you got something out of it. And I think one of the things I'd like to leave with you is, of course, as I talked before about anti-Semitism, we got to face it on dead on. You can't run away from it. It's not going to happen. And the other thing is that we are Jews all over the world. And it's so nice to see all of you that are still interested in the culture, in the minhagim, I have it in minhagim, Rabbi, in English.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
He doesn't know either.
Minhagim. Okay, and the culture and the unity that we have, although we don't think it that way, but believe me, you must start thinking like that. We must be one. We must be one. We're all Jews. No matter, we have people that are very religious, very, very devoted. And then we have cultural and all kinds of Jews, cultural Jews, non-cultural Jews, conservative, reform, they're all Jews. And when we have an evening like that, it brings us all together. So that's why you can always tell at the Jewish gathering of that sort, you'll find all kinds of Jews. And that's fine. It's fine with me. Maybe not with the rabbi, but for me, it's fine.
It's fine with me, that's for sure.
Okay.
My Fishel,
Yes.
I want to finish off by giving you a blessing, the best blessing I can give you. In the Yiddish, we used to say that the best blessing that can be given is Zos Leben Iber Ayar,
Right.
which means in English, you should live another year to be able to share with us again.
I'm with you on that.
I was about 20 more years.
Oh, this bit much. But whatever you say, Rabbi, you know, if you want to make it 10 years, it's good with me too.
Well, you told me that when you got the vaccine, they told you that you're going to live forever, no?
Yes, somebody said it, and I say, would you please sign over here? And they didn't move. So I don't think this is going to happen. We're not meant to stay forever. So I thank you again, and be well, and watch out for that idiotic COVID. Let's see if we can get rid of that damn thing once and for all. And I want to see you in person. I want to see you in shul. I want to see you anywhere, you know, in a crowd. So that's what my blessing is for you. Please be well. And let's see if we can get out of this terrible thing we have now.
Amen.
Amen.
Have a wonderful night, Fishel. Have a wonderful night, everyone. Tk you for joining.
I think I'm
Thank
going
you
to
so
sleep.
much.
I think I'm going to sleep well, brother.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Who said that? Somebody said.
Who said what? Good night.
Yes.
Here, there we
Oh,
go.
It's me. Hi.
Hi, Ariel.
Thank you very, very much. It's been really a pleasure listening to you sing and you tell your story and you answer questions. So really, thank you. Thank you.
And where's your fiance?
He's cooking now.
He's what?
He's cooking.
I'm here.
Oh, maybe we can have some.
Hi.
Hi.
I thought you were sleeping already.
He's cooking.
Oh no, I'm cooking.
Look at what kind of boy. Look at what she got. A boy that cooks.
Well, of course.
Great.
Okay, so do you make him work? Is that what is happening?
Yes,
You make him work.
of course.
Okay. let me tell you, as a man that's been married for many, many years.
Twice.
Yeah, twice. And they're all the same, by the way. They make you work. They make you work all the time. So it doesn't get any better. You're gonna have to live with that.
It's a pleasure to work for the one you love, you know?
He says that with a smile, eh? Notice how he's smiling.
Fishel, they're getting married soon. What's your marriage advice for the young couple?
Oh,
Have a lot of patience.
no, they're gonna invite us. I made a deal with them. They're gonna invite us, me and you, and you're gonna bring the schnapps, right?
Definitely.
And we'll come visit these young people.
Absolutely.
But what you have to give them some advice, some good marriage advice.
Okay, good marriage advice.
Just say yes to your wife all the time.
I could take it.
I like that.
Let me tell you about some advice. You have to learn 4 words.
Here, yes, dear, from Dan L.
No,
You're only yes,
no,
dear.
just a minute. You have to learn 4 words. I do and yes, dear. And you'll have a very happy marriage for the rest of your life.
Perfect.
So if I understand well, she say yes once the first time, and then I have to say yes every time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
He was joking.
I'm sorry. Say that.
He
I
said,
say, yeah, go ahead. I
no,
think.
please, you say it. You say it better.
He was the
You were saying something.
Ariel's fiance.
I said that if I understand well, she said yes the first time, and then after I have to say yes every time.
Uh-oh.
Believe me, I've lived with that
You're
over
only seeing your
60
forehead.
years.
You're only seeing your-
And you know,
you're only seeing your forehead.
okay. And
Good night, everyone.
okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
I'm glad that she's been gone. No, listen to me. We're married 27 years. I was married once before, but in total, if you put it all together in total points, it's a whole lot of years. Okay. But you have to understand, and now I'm talking, what's his name again? I forget.
Johan.
Johan.
What's his name?
Johan.
Johan?
Yes.
Okay. You have to remember this. Females have a different perspective of the world than you have. The minute you decide to accept that spirit, that way of life, you have never ever any problem. You know?
Good luck.
And the other story is like the wife said to the husband, you know, my dear, if you would not say no all the time, no, if you would say yes, we would never have an argument. Okay.
True.
So these are good things to hear. And
I approve.
may I ask when you were getting married, or are you getting married? I'm sorry to ask.
Yeah.
It's a personal.
So hopefully, we hope by next summer of 2022.
In 2022.
Yeah.
Because we have family in both continents.
I
So
can
it's
wait, and I hope the rabbi for sure is going to wait, aren't you? Yes.
What do you? As long as you wait, I wait.
There's
As long as you wait.
perfect.
1922.
We'll be honored.
Huh?
We will be honored.
Absolutely.
Honored,
Honored.
okay,
Yeah.
honored.
Honored.
Okay. So where did you live in France?
Sorry?
Where did you live in France?
I was living
Okay,
in
okay.
Paris. Paris. Créteil, exactement.
Fishel, ask them where they met.
Yeah, that's the good question.
Where?
At the rabbi place.
At the Chabad.
At Chabad?
Yes.
This
With
rabbi?
Rabbi Bernhard. Yeah.
Okay, and it worked out so far.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he cooks. What else can I ask for?
I want to tell you that my hope is to be able to live another year, hopefully, and to be able to come to that synagogue. I come there from time to time, not always, but I do come there. And when I do, I usually take part in the service a little bit. So I hope to see you there, and you will see how I do it as a cantor, as a chazan.
Well, you have a beautiful voice.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
So
I-
Bezrat Hashem, you will.
Hashem. I like to hear that from young people. You know, I meet so many students in my work that I do that okay. I met so many young students in the university, in secondary school, and even till grade 6. And some of them are Jewish, and they come over to me and they tell me, well, you know, I am Jewish. Oh, I said, that's nice. Well, they don't know very much. I said, do you speak Hebrew? Do you speak Yiddish? Do you go maybe to a synagogue or something? She says, no, my parents are not that religious. I said, you know, you don't have to be very religious to go to synagogue.
Mhm.
You can be what you are and go to synagogue.
Mhm.
You know that in our religion, and the rabbi will either not agree with me or not, or will agree with me. We don't know who God looks at first, who is better, and therefore all of us are good in God's eyes, and He wants to hear from you like He wants to hear from me and the rabbi. So that's the way my philosophy goes. And so someday I would like to meet with you two again. I don't know when
That
it
would
will be, maybe after you get married, maybe you're gonna have little kids and so on. Anytime is good for me and the rabbi.
Well, you will both receive an invitation.
Yeah,
He comes
we
with-
will take the address and we make a promise to invite you.
I want to tell you that he has some of the best schnapps in the world. I don't know if he is the best rabbi in the world, but I know he's the best schnapps person in the world.
On the alcohol.
All right, so we have to start to be, we are beginner in schnapps.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Be well, you guys.
Be well.
Thank you very
And
much.
take care of each other. And what can I say? I look at you and we say, Am Yisrael Chai.
Exactly,
Hi.
exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Amazing.
much. Really
So,
appreciate it.
any of you ever been to Israel?
Most of my family is in Israel.
But did you ever live there?
You,
Israel?
Did you live there?
I went there like for, I won't say that I live there, but I spent some times over there, I would say.
So did you learn Hebrew?
קצת.
יכולים לדבר בעברית אם אתה רוצה. אין,
אני יודע.
אתה יודע שאני למדתי לדבר עברית בקמפ הזה שאני הייתי שם אחרי המלחמה ב-46 ו-7.
And how old were you when you learned?
How old I am?
No, when you learned
Learned
at that point.
when I learned Hebrew, I was 13.
Okay.
12, 13, 14, like that. You know, I had my bar mitzvah in the camp. Remember I told?
Yeah.
So we had a very, very good school. And remember that 1946 and 47, it was not Israel yet.
Right.
But we had shlichim, envoys, you know. We had shlichim coming as teachers, plus we had other teachers that were from survivors that survived the war. And they were teachers, professional teachers in Romania or Poland or wherever, you know. And so we had a very, very good school. And what happened, and that we're talking about, how much is it now, 60 years or more? So so the first year we had a problem because I was like 11, 12 when I came there, 12, I think. And when I went to school, the problem was that there were kids that without parents, many, in my class, for instance. And they spoke, some of them spoke Polish, some of them spoke Romanian, some of them spoke Hungarian, and it was a mishmash, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very difficult. So on the second year that I went, in 1947, when I went to school, they decided to make Ivrit bi-Ivrit, which meant you had to speak Hebrew from the time you came into school until you went home. And even on recess, when the kids were playing, when we were playing ball in the yard, in the schoolyard, you had to speak Ivrit. If you couldn't, you just had to do your best that you possibly could. So that's how I learned. That's been like 60 something years, and I haven't forgotten it yet. You know.
But you speak multiple languages.
You know, the last language I learned, I was Spanish.
Very nice.
Yes. And you know how old I was then? 75.
Wow, that's very impressive.
75.
Good for you.
I learned it in basically in Chile. I was doing some business there. We were exporting machinery to Chile, Santiago, Chile. So we had a warehouse there. And I had two partners who didn't speak English or French, either one. So I had to get a translator when I first started my business there. So to be able to talk to these two people, they weren't going, you know, they're in Chile, they weren't going to speak to me in English or French. So I did that for a while, but then I got tired and I said, no. I have to learn this language. And slowly, I took a course for about 3 months, 4 months, When I came back here, well, I was going back and forth to Chile all the time. And when I came here once, I got a hold of a professor that was teaching in a CJ. She was teaching, she was from Colombia, and I asked her, I want you to teach me the language, you know. And so for 3 months I had her, and that's it. After that, I didn't have time. I should have done a lot more, but I didn't. But I had enough to speak, and to go to a store to buy things, that was not a problem. I mean, just street speak. And so I learned to speak it. And then, we had our place there for about 10 years. So I was speaking quite well. I don't have who to speak to here, so I'm forgetting a lot of, I find somebody, I start forgetting words. Also because I'm an old man and I forget.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not an old man yet.
Well, kol hakavod, huh? Kol hakavod.
Okay, thank you so much.
Be well and have a good night.
You
Thank you.
too.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.